China's trade surplus with the U.S. ballooned to a record $35.6 billion last month, official data showed yesterday, as exports across the Pacific remained strong, despite a raft of U.S. tariffs, while imports shrank. Relations between the world's top two economies continue to be tense, despite a trade dispute truce struck between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping last week. Trump and some people in his administration have said that China would immediately start buying U.S. goods in bulk, but Beijing has not confirmed those claims. The increasingly lopsided trade in goods between the two nations threatens to further derail prospects for a trade deal during a 90-day negotiation period. The ballooning trade deficit with China is a particularly sore point for Trump, who campaigned on turning the situation around. China's exports to the U.S. for last month rose 9.8% year-on-year, while imports for the month fell 25% year-on-year, data from China's Customs Administration showed. Usually Chinese buyers have snapped up U.S. soybeans in the final months of the year as the harvest hits the market and beans from competitor Brazil dry up. However, this year, Chinese buyers have passed on U.S. soybeans, which face a 25% border tax upon import, part of the $50 billion in U.S. goods that Beijing hit with higher duties this summer in retaliation for U.S. tariffs. China's soybean imports fell 38% year-on-year to 5.4 million tons for the month, the data showed. The trade surplus with the U.S. expanded to $293.5 billion for the January to November period, up from $251.3 billion in the same period last year. China's overall trade, what it buys and sells with all countries, including the U.S., logged a $44.7 billion surplus last month, up from $35 billion in October, the data showed. However, growth of exports and imports slowed from October, with exports rising 5.4% year-on-year for last month, short of the 9.4% forecast by Bloomberg News, and imports rising 3% year-on-year, also below the forecast. The sagging export and import growth is another bad sign for China's economy, which grew at its slowest pace for 9 years in the third quarter, expanding 6.5% year-on-year for the July to September period. While exports to the U.S. have held up so far this autumn, the trade dispute has sapped confidence. The Shanghai Composite Index has fallen by about 1/4 from its January high, while the yuan has slipped about 9% against the U.S. dollar. In the U.S., major stock indices fell more than 2% to close the market's worst week since March, and one that left the Dow and the S. Still, Beijing remains outwardly optimistic on prospects for a trade deal. "We are fully confident that we can reach an agreement in the coming 90 days, Chinese Ministry of Commerce spokesman Gao Feng said on Thursday. Trump tweeted out the quote, adding, "I agree.